Once we're able to make a connection and get the YouTube data, then using JavaScript, returning the JSON as a JavaScript object, we can output the content on the page with JavaScript. So we haven't applied any styling yet, but we are returning back all of the search results for that particular search query and outputting into the console. So this is the query that we're making using this request URL. So if we do a copy, or we can open it in the new tab. And so this is the full JSON data that we're returning back and pulling out the data that we want to use and output to the page. So we're going to be using title, description, and also the hi image, so whatever the hi image is. And then also we need the ID of the video in order to link to it. And once we return it back into JavaScript, then using the JavaScript to create the page content is the next step once we have the data. So that's what we're constructing in this lesson and outputting the JSON data to the page. Updating our application to have a search and then allow for the search to connect to the API and output the content that's coming back from YouTube onto our page. So for the search, we're also going to need an input field. So let's just create a quick input field here. And of course, you can do this with JavaScript as well. And I'm just going to get this search queue for search query and select it with JavaScript. So we're making our selection. We can just call this search query, and then using the document query selector and selecting the element with a class of search queue. And this way we have an input field that whenever we click the button, we can make the search happen. And we can update the text here, search YouTube for the button. And of course, we apply some styling afterwards. So we want to make all of the basic functionality first, and then have the updates afterwards to the styling and the way the application functions once we've debugged it and made sure that it is working as expected. So now we've got the search YouTube. So we want to update the term that we're searching for. So in this case, we're searching for Q, which is test. So we want to update that and use the search query and just return back whatever value we currently have in there. And if there's no value, then we can just search by test. So either way, we're going to be performing a search. And let's take a closer look at what we've got here. So we've got the search parameters. And if we want to search for JavaScript, and let's clear that. So we're making a request for JavaScript contents. And again, it is returning back the most relevant content. So this is a search result, the ID of the video. And then the main information that we're going to be after is going to be within the snippet. So we've got the title where JavaScript is, description, there's also the published time, and there's also thumbnails. So it's going to be nice when we put out the default thumbnail onto the page, and we can also do the high as well as the medium. So they do have the height and the width there of each one of these sizes. And we want to output the title, we want to output the description of the channel, a link to the video, and then as well as an image of the video. So every time the user searches, then we can return back and we can output those 10 results. So let's create a function in order to handle the output of the results. And we can output them to the page just over here where we're making the request. And also in this case, we should have a catch to catches any of the errors that might be happening. So in case YouTube, in case we're over our quota, or if there's any other errors that might be happening, it's always a good idea to include the catch within the fetch request. So as we loop through the items, and if we get data back, then we can take output and update its inner HTML and just clear out the inner HTML. So that way we're ready to add to output as we create new items. So within the function, make and I'll just call it make card, as we're going to be making these cards for the YouTube videos and then returning those back, and then that will make it easy for us to apply styling. So within here, we can just use whatever the data is, and then for the make card, we'll output that content. And let's do it a different way, where we've got the HTML or element. So it's going to return back the element that it created, and then we can take output and append the element that was just created. And let's create that first element. So this is going to be where we've got the main container. So we'll just call it main, and then using the document create element, let's create a main div, and this is going to hold all of the information, and then we can return back that main object. And then within main, for now, let's add in and update the text content, and we'll change this afterwards. This is just to make sure that we are being able to get the data and output some of the data. And for now, within the main content, let's just write test. So we should get back test results there, and we do see the data that's being output there. So within the snippet, let's select the video content and use the data snippet object. And within the video, now that we've got it within the data snippet object, we can just select the object property names. So this way it's returning back all of the content as titles there. So we've got a number of items there, and let's type in JavaScript to see if it updates and changes our search results. So whatever our search results are, it's going to be returning back the most relevant, the 10 most relevant videos from our search. And that's what we're outputting on the page. So we're grabbing the title and we're adding that into the main element. So ultimately we want to have more of a constructed object for these elements. So let's take the main and add class list, and I'll add a class of box. And this way within the styling, selecting the element class of box. So do 50% width and set up a margin, or actually set up padding for it. And update the display to inline block so that they stack next to each other. And I'll update this afterwards to just see how it returns back the results. So we've got it more of in this stacked order. And let's apply the box sizing, as I want to use a more strict format. So if I do 50%, but I have padding, then that's going to stack them separately. And if I add in a border, so what's happening here is this is just a styling thing, that if we're doing 50% and then we're also adding in a border, so that's going to be over 50%, and that's why they're stacking. Whereas if I go under 50%, or if I do 30%, it's going to stack them differently, because we're taking one pick of the border and then each one has padding. So there is a way to fix this. So select all of the elements and we'll apply the property for the box sizing. And if we do the border box, that will account for the 50% and allow us to stack at 50% width for each one of those. Let's also do margin, and we'll add in a margin at the top and at the bottom. So do 10 pixels and then 0. So that way there's spacing in between each one. And for the box, we'll have a paragraph, and that will allow us to separate out the paragraph. So we can do a text transform, and how about we just turn it to uppercase. So you can do that with JavaScript, and then you can also do that with styling as well. So whatever you prefer to do. So within the main, let's create the first paragraph. So this is going to be the paragraph, we're going to put the title information. So create element and just create a quick paragraph. And then for the paragraph, update the text content to be whatever the video title is. And then main, and we're going to append to main the newly created paragraph. So that provides us more structure for the content and also provides us the ability to do styling for those elements. And I'm going to also set a default height and set it for 100 pixels and get rid of the margins. And let's try it out and see what this looks like. So do test and see what results we're getting back. If we do Google, it's updating some of the results there. And we'll try JavaScript. So it's again updating the results. We want to make sure that the results are able to be changed. And let's also add in some of the other object values that we have here before doing any more styling, so that we get all of the information that we want. And there is quite a bit of information that's being returned back here. So just as we got the title, we can get the description. And I'm going to just create this as a div, another div. And instead of a paragraph, we'll create it as a div. And then within the div, I'll add in using the backticks, so the template literals. And this way we can style the content for the title, as well as we can do the content for the description. So the description can maybe be another div there that's just sitting underneath. And then let's close off that element. And let's also place the title still within a paragraph. So we get the styling applied. But we can also do that within the one within the one statement. And of course, you can separate this with the JavaScript as well. So this is just a simple example of how we're returning back the code. And actually, this needs to be inner HTML as we're building it out as HTML content. So there is some styling issues there, and actually I'm going to remove out, and this is one of the reasons I like to do the styling afterwards, is because in case things get thrown off. So also let's add in an image. So the image is going to be sitting within the snippet code, so under the thumbnails property, and whatever image we want. So if we want the largest size image, let's select the largest size, and we'll just get the image path. And this is actually going to be a thumbnail. So using the video object, and let's traverse into the object properties. So just as we had title and description, we have thumbnails, but this is an object in itself. So we need to select what properties we want within the thumbnails. And if we want to use the high, we would select high. And then within here, this is going to be where ultimately we've got the URL for the image path. So if we want to set an image, let's add that into our code where we've got the image source, and that's going to be sitting within the thumbnail variable. So let's see what that looks like, and we'll do a search. And it's returned back the images. So it looks a little bit messy, and we can clean this up with styling. So as long as we've got the content, and we might also want to have a link to it. So another div with a link to the video. And we have the information for the video links. So let's do a search, because we have the ID of the video. And that's how you can connect to the video through YouTube, by selecting the ID. So we also have the channel ID, channel title as well. And the video ID is the one that we're looking for. So we want to get back the ID. So using the video ID instead of snippet, and then returning back the video ID. So this is still going to be contained within data, because remember, for VID, we did the data snippet. So that shortened getting content from the snippet. But if we want to pull back information from the video itself, then we're selecting the ID and the video ID. So let's do that, and that path is going to be data. So let's construct that. And the path is going to be data, ID, and then within ID, we need to specify the video ID. And this is camel case, so don't forget that capitalize the I in ID. And let's make sure that we're returning back the content. So there's our video ID, so the link to the ID. And for YouTube videos, so in order to select the video by its ID, the ID is going to be equal, V equals whatever the ID value is. So that's how we can construct the link for the video ID. And then we just need to make the link active. So that's our link. And just as we did the thumbnail, link video, and we can use this information in order to create the link for the video. So if we want to link it, we can put a href here and link to the video. So whatever the path is, and let's set target to equal underscore blank. And then here again, if we want to just output the path, link video. So this is depending on what your preference is. And then of course you can always use the create element to create these elements separately if you want different type of interaction for the elements. So I'm just creating it as one HTML blob, but that's optional as well. So we've got the link to the video at the bottom, and there's the video that opens up when we click it. So of course we still need to clean it up, apply some more styling, but once we've got the fully functional application, try it a few times and make sure when we do the search that we are getting back different search values. And as you can see, the images are varying in size, so that's something to keep in mind as well. And that's why it's important that you apply the right styling to the content that you're outputting. So coming up next, we're just going to do some fine tuning and clean up the application with styling. So once you've got your application up and running, then you're able to apply the styling in order to complete your web application that's connecting to the YouTube API. Tasks for this lesson: to customize your request URL, returning back the parameters that you want, output the results into the console so that you can take a look at the returned values and select the properties that you want to use in JavaScript, and then get those property values, output them to JavaScript. You can also check them within the console to make sure that you're getting the right values, and then select and update the page content within the HTML with the content coming from the YouTube JSON results, and output them to your page. Depending on what the user is searching, there should be different results returned back for those search results.